Toronto to new immigrants, and just wanted to share a few details so that it can be helpful to all the immigrants who are coming to Toronto. So the first thing I wanted to do is just to introduce, just show what is Greater Toronto area basically, and what areas does it encompass. And the topics which I would try to cover today is what are the few websites which are useful to any new immigrant, or for that matter, anyone living in Canada. So first, let me start with the overview of GTA area and obviously I'm going to be using Google Maps, and believe me, this is really useful that you would be using Google Maps every day probably for everything like going out, taking a transit, finding out which place is where. And I'm going to be giving some brief overview in terms of uh, where exactly what is GTA and what are the areas which encompass GTA basically. So over here, this particular area, let me take a screenshot over here. Um, so this particular area which I'm showing basically, which is basically starting with Milton, Oakville, Mississauga, Brampton, Vaughan, Richmond Hill. This is the core Toronto area. This is Scarborough. This is Pickering. This is Ajax, basically. So the GTA is consisting of these areas, and if I have to talk about downtown Toronto, basically this is the downtown Toronto area. This is where the financial district is, and most of the jobs are. If you talk about, however, now it's expanding. So this is the area where most of the jobs are, and the subway line or the Toronto TCC transit, which we call, extends from this part of the city, which is basically Kipling, and it goes till Kennedy and Eglinton, which is over here. Um, which is over here. So the transit basically cover the Bloor Danforth line, which we call, runs from Kipling till Kennedy, and you have the Downsview, University Avenue. You have the University Avenue, Spadina, and Young University Avenue, Spadina line, which is extending from uh, this part of the city, which is close to Downsview, and it goes till Finch Station. It goes like this and covers the entire downtown area and goes till Finch Station. So this is the core Toronto area, and for new immigrants who are actually coming to Canada, some of the areas which the new immigrants prefer or like to live in are, one is obviously Mississauga. Mississauga and Brampton area, probably I should say. Brampton is over here. Primarily, Mississauga is an area where most of the new migrants come in, and the reason being, obviously, the cost of living is little lesser compared to Toronto. The rents are a little lesser, and you also, for immigrants coming from South Asia or India, you have a lot of Indian grocery stores nearby, which enable you to probably, buy things or buy groceries without having a car. You have public transportation available. On the other hand, the immigrants also come to the Scarborough area, which is on the east end, which is around the Scarborough town center. And if you see, most of the immigrants are concentrated in this area, which is basically Markham and Ellesmere, and you have a lot of Indian grocery stores over here. The best part about Scarborough is it is connected by Toronto Transit, whereas Mississauga is not connected by Toronto Transit. So this is a really great place for new immigrants, and you can probably get navigate through the city using the Toronto TTC pass, which is approximately $150 a month. However, that is going to be changing soon, which is they are going to make it more on the basis of, like in terms of what station you are trying to, based on the distance travel. They are trying to change that system. I don't know when that is going to happen, but as of now, for new immigrants, this area, which is basically around the Scarborough Belt, is a great bet as well. Another area where I would definitely recommend immigrants to come in, and I have seen a lot of immigrants coming in who want to be as close as possible to the city, is this area basically, which is around Eglinton and Don Mills, and this is known as Thorncliffe Park Drive. You have a lot of apartments in this area, which is again, like full of South Asians, probably more from Pakistan, and that is going to definitely that is another area where immigrants prefer to live in, and that has a lot of grocery stores and amenities, which will definitely help the new immigrants to settle in Canada. So this is an overview, and the rest of the areas such as Markham, Vaughan, and Richmond Hill, immigrants do live in these areas as well, but not as much as the other areas, and primarily because the reason being Markham and Richmond Hill and Vaughan, these areas are not covered by TTC transit, and it becomes really expensive for the immigrants to actually settle down in these areas. So that is an overview about the Greater Toronto area. I'm sorry, like I'm referring to just Toronto over here for new immigrants. Obviously, it's not necessary that all the immigrants would actually come into Toronto, but for our discussion over here, I'm just being focused on the Greater Toronto area. So this is about the GTA. I mean, like, it is important that every immigrant who comes in definitely understands the geography of Toronto and tries to get well versed with the city in terms of the transit, and importantly, like getting understanding around what the because over here, especially people coming from South Asia, we are never used to the concept of going east versus going west, intersections, and finding out a place with the help of intersection. When we come here, that's number one thing we got to learn. That is, people definitely talk in terms of south, east, west, north, and south. So it's really important that one understands the geography of the city really well to be able to communicate uh, and try to find places. So that was basically around about house. I mean, like, different areas in Toronto and where you can find housing, and where do immigrants live in. Now, coming to, like, what are the useful websites where you can actually find some, which would be probably your toolkit for surviving in the city, because obviously everything is running on internet. So what are the few things which are required, and what are the few things, I mean, like, how do you go about it? So one of the websites which is really popular, I would say, in Canada, or probably very much used in Greater Toronto area, is Kijiji. So let me just take you through that website, kijiji.ca. So this is a place where you can buy and sell stuff. You can basically find out accommodation. You can even find out jobs. You can even find out services in terms of, let's say you want to find a daycare for your kid, or you want to find out, useful stuff like, finding out an accountant, finding out somewhere where you can get some food. So this is really useful website, and I'll give you an example over here. So let's say that I want to find out. I want to buy stuff like, let's say I'm trying to buy used furniture. So let's go over here and find out over what can I buy over here. Buy and sell furniture. And if I go there, especially for new immigrants, it's very difficult to buy new stuff immediately. So you can go here, you can basically find out, okay, this is the furniture I'm trying to get. You can do basically search over there. Everything is on cash in Kijiji. Never ever do online transfer, or never ever try to, give a check or accept anything without cash payment. So that's the primary rule in Kijiji. You can even find a lot of other things like, ride share. You can find out different things over here. Like for example, let's say you're looking for short-term rental. This is a great place to start actually. Short-term rentals. You can first thing, once you know the geography and once you decide where you're planning to stay, it's important that you use Google Maps in tandem with whatever place you're trying to find out over here, because and nowadays Google Maps is coming with street views. So it's once you know the address, you can actually go into Google Map, type that address. For example, let's say that I'm looking for an um, I'm looking at this accommodation, Core West Financial Entertainment District, and I see that this is basically in in a part of Toronto, and I can go into the map and see, okay, this is the place where the building is. So I can go into Google Maps and I can literally search that place and find out what does the area look like. And this can be done from whichever country you are in right now. It doesn't mean that you have to wait till coming to Toronto to figure that out. So it's important that you have this plan, you make use of this website, and you actually go through it. So that's about, the Kijiji is the most useful website. And now the other thing is banking. So banking in Canada, if you see, use Google for everything. So uh, if I talk about different banks in Canada, right? So there are 5 major banks in Canada, and this Wikipedia article would probably help you to go through it. So these are the 5 banks, which is Royal Bank of Canada, TD Bank, Bank of Nova Scotia, and Bank of Montreal, and Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, which is CIBC. So all these 5 banks are pretty much the big 5 banks in Canada. Out of that, the oldest one obviously is the Bank of Montreal. It has been a really old bank, and it is well established. So I would say the services offered by all the banks are pretty similar, and there is no major differentiation in terms of the services being provided. It is just one's choice and one's comfort level in terms of where a person wants to open a bank account, and the charges are pretty much similar as well. So that's about the bank in Canada. I mean, like those are the banks in Canada, and in Canada there are 2 types of account which you might open, which is basically checking account and savings account. Now, checking account definitely is the account which will be used for day-to-day banking, and a lot of these banks actually will definitely have some monthly fee for using for having some transactions. So if you are looking for a no fee account, then your choice is PC Financial. Now, PC Financial is a bank which has only ABM machines and only phone banking available. It does not actually have branches. For having some kind of interaction with the person. So it's more of online banking, no frills banking, if I say. So you would be looking at PC Financial for your day-to-day banking needs if you're looking at no charges. However, if you're looking for some advanced banking needs and you have needs such as wiring in funds, or you want to have more services available, then these are one of the banks. And especially if you're looking to, I mean, I'm sure as an immigrant, you would not be looking to open a brokerage account and start trading. But let's say you have got enough capital and you want to make use of that capital in the form of trading or something, you would want to bank with one of these banks and open a brokerage account associated with them. So that's about banking in Canada. Now coming to internet. So in internet, coming to other services, I'm going to be talking about core services available in Canada, right? So internet service providers in Canada, we have a lot of internet service. Primarily, we have the big players, and we have small players, right, or medium players. And the difference being, like most of the smaller players use the network or the infrastructure provided by the major players, right? So for example, tech savvy will use you can again look at this blog probably, like in terms of what are the service providers available. Tech savvy is one of them. I use tech savvy. and they are pretty good in terms of the charges which they charge us. And I mean, like there's no contract, there are no hidden fees. You know exactly what you're paying upfront. However, they have some limitations in terms of which areas they cover. I'm not well versed with Primus Contact, the service provider, but if you're looking for some, and then there are big players like Rogers, Bell, and Fido has come up with internet too. So if you're looking for one of them, you can definitely go ahead with that. But I think Tech Savvy is pretty good in terms of their services, and they're pretty reasonable in their charges too. In terms of cell phone service providers, in or cell phone service, or you would say that wireless service providers, what we call over here. You again have Rogers, Bell, Telus, and the other smaller players again like Wind, Kuro, and Mobilicity as well. So I mean, out of that, I would say um, Wind is pretty good in terms of their uh, actually, Wind is known as Freedom these days. I mean, like Wind has changed its name to Freedom, and Freedom has pretty good plans. However, keep in mind that the network quality is not really good outside Greater Toronto area and also in some parts of Toronto. So it's very important that you make sure that the network quality is good before you go in for this service. So that was about the cell phone service provider in Toronto. And yeah, so other things which new immigrants would probably require are, so once you've taken care of your housing, once you know that what place you have decided, once you have basically you know that what internet, cell phone, these are the basic things you got to get going. After that, you need to definitely start looking to sign up for your health card, get your health card, and get your social insurance numbers, which will definitely help you to get jobs. So once you have done these basic prerequisites, you at least would know that okay, you would have a place to live, you know where exactly you would be getting your groceries, you know how to travel, you have internet, you have cell phone, and after that you can definitely look into job search. So I would be discussing about that probably in one of my next blogs. And if you have any questions, please leave comments, and I will definitely try to address that in my future blogs, and definitely provide your feedback. Thank you.